But one of the things I can't shut up about, people in the machinery industry on my podcast, we talk a lot about serendipity, which is a big thing for a machinery dealer. For people that aren't familiar with serendipity, it's basically a synonym for luck.
Welcome back to the Manufacturing Come Up. I'm your host, Malachi Greb. Here's the place where we talk about manufacturing, careers, how to navigate your career in the manufacturing space, and being able to experience this from other people's stories, other people's journeys, and people who have taken career paths as career engineers, as controls engineers, as mechanical engineers, as CEOs of billion-dollar companies from all different walks of life. And today we have another special guest, Noah Graff. Welcome to the show.
This is really fun. It's fun to be on somebody else's podcast. And well done on the intro. I don't have a live podcast. I'm going to have my first after this, but that's really awesome because I usually screw up on the intro and have to go, oh, can I get a mulligan on that?
Right. The intro is literally probably my least favorite part about the whole podcasting thing. It's just so on the spot. It's so like, the funny thing is like, I may know somebody's name by heart. I might know their company by heart and have a full relationship with them. But whenever that intro hits and I have to, I'm like on that spot, it's like almost freeze,
Well, I think it's two things. It's like, number one, you have to like remember everything exactly right. And number two, it's like you're jumping in the pool. It's this like first thing, you haven't done anything else yet. You don't have any warm up. So all the respect.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing that makes you special makes you special and to be on this podcast is you also have a podcast, correct?
I do. I have a podcast that's called Swarfcast, and we specialize in for professionals in precision machining. But there's similar things to this podcast, in that we love to tell stories, and we love to be somewhat eclectic. Things are a springboard. But yeah, no, I've had a podcast for 5 years, and it's really interesting to be on other people's podcasts and see how they do things, and hopefully a couple of you will tune into mine. I'm expecting about, I don't know, 5 after this. We'll see. But then it'll come out in a few weeks, and I'll get that the edited version that'll be more standard.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely, it's an accomplishment to have a podcast as long as you have, and anybody who's just advocating manufacturing and really trying to help spread the knowledge and just grow this manufacturing community and let it be that more people can see inside of it. I have a lot of respect for that, and it's much needed in our industry. I think that over the past 5 years, there's probably been more exposure to the manufacturing industry than there has the whole entire lifetime of manufacturing.
That's interesting. You said the last 5 years?
I think the last 5 years, yeah.
Just because of the media and all the social media and videos and everything.
Yeah, especially like social media. I mean, because especially before social media, right? You just had news, right, and news articles and email campaigns, and like you really didn't, in TV commercials, right? This was your only way of like getting in front of people, especially people who are not aware of the industry, right? Industry people are already going to events, right? So that those people are already the people. But now with social media, some guy that's on my Facebook is seeing something about robots that he's never seen before, and I get people messaging me regularly like, "Hey man, I actually started going to a robotics program because I seen some post that you made on Facebook." I'm like, dude, that's super cool.
Isn't that amazing when people say that?
Yeah, it is. It's super awesome. And probably by far one of the coolest ones I've had so far is I was in a facility in India, and
interesting.
And somebody walked up to me. He's like, dude, I got this job because of you. And I'm like what? I'm just thinking like that was like probably definitely the most mind blowing and shocking.
Isn't that incredible? He got it because of you.
Yeah. I was like, holy cow. He's like, yeah, I watched one of your videos, and that's like the reason why I went to school for this. And I'm like, what? Like, I mean, it's just
Yeah,
mind blowing.
you feel like you have purpose and you're making a mark.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, yeah, it's like, and I don't know if maybe part of it's just coincidental, but to be on the other
It's
side
not
of the world.
coincidental. Absolutely not. There's nothing coincidental about it. I mean, and
I guess there's probably
we're gonna cover it in this interview, but I'm all about serendipity, and that's I mean that's
I
what I'm
guess this makes
about.
a perfect segue, right? Let's just segue all the way to it, and then we'll get back to a little bit more of your actual career and past.
You're in the driver's seat, man.
All
Um,
right.
I
So
mean, actually, you know what though? Uh, my suggestion: let's give people some context.
yeah.
I before we come into that. Um,
Okay.
so
Let's take it all the way back to the very beginning. When did the inclination come that you were going to be in the manufacturing space?
yeah, nepotism definitely. Um, I am in a family business. We buy and sell multi-spindle screw machines, CNC equipment, mainly stuff in the turning sphere. Um, I my company Graff Pinkert. It was started about 80 years ago by my grandfather Leonard Graff and his cousin Aaron Pinkert. So that's how we got the name Graff Pinkert. And then later, my dad and his brother went into the business, and it had always been kind of, something lurking there in the background as an interesting opportunity. But as you know from, you're all about getting stories. Things things take twists and turns, and journeys lead you to a certain place. I didn't know for a while what I was going to do. I I was really into filmmaking, and I made some documentaries, and I studied communication arts at University of Wisconsin, and then I I I graduated. I studied abroad in Italy, and then I went back there for a little bit, and then I came home, and I was trying to figure out what to do. Uh, and meanwhile, my dad, he in college, he got a master's degree in journalism, and so it had always been his thing to uh, combine his um, vocation of machinery dealing with a passion for writing. And so back in the late 80s, early 90s, he started a publication that he'd send to all his customers. It was called the Graff Pinkert Times. And then in around 2000, he decided to um, expand. He started Screw Machine World, he called it, which later became Today's Machining World. Um, and then, so he started that while I was in college. And so I'm 25, and you know, I knew I was really interested in film and video. Uh, and he says, broadband is coming. He was just a little bit ahead of his time. He's like, broadband's coming. We're going to do all these stories for about, um, we're going to take the stories of the people we're interviewing, and we can do video versions of it. And you can make training videos. And uh, he really was a bit ahead of his time, about a year or two ahead of his time. And um, so he lured me in, uh, and it wasn't quite ready. I mean, he started making videos, but then I wasn't doing any of the machinery business. I started writing for the magazine and coming up with um, different features, and I gravitated towards that. And we built that up. over a few years, and then uh, it had, it started doing stuff on the web, and then we decided to just take the whole thing online, because print was dead. Um, this is like around 2010, 2011, and so it just became more of a blog, but with other stuff, value added, um, you know press releases from various OEMs and stuff like that. But we always took pride in, it was all original content, no advertorials, and we talked a lot about people, about stories, about people in the industry, or about whatever we felt like talking about, which we still do. I mean, my dad wrote an article. We do one blog, um, usually on Tuesday or Wednesday, and one blog on Thursday or Friday. I do the one on Thursday or Friday, which is often a podcast slash blog. And I mean, my dad published one yesterday about Israel. He's very interested in what's passionate about what's going on there. And um,
How long do you think you guys have been doing that?
doing
The blog posting.
well, I mean, the whole thing, again, it started in 2000 around, and then for a little while we were doing the print and the vlogging, and that's got to have been, I don't know, 2008, 2009.
I mean, back then, like the print was like the only way before the internet was around, right? I mean,
Yeah, and again, my dad, he's interesting. He was kind of ahead of his time. He was thinking it was like the .com boom around
yeah,
2000, and he's like, his idea was just to start an internet only uh, blog. He's like, yeah, we'll start this, and who knows, maybe it will sell out, and it's going to be like a zine, and and then it was just too early, particularly for people in our industry. And so we were like, all right, well, if you want to really get people to read, you're going to have to get a print.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, there's thousands of blogs up there, from
crazy.
publishing one to twice a week, and we send out email blasts, every week. And so then 2011 came around, and we were like, all right, let's go online, and I'll have time, and I'm going to try the used machine tool business, and it particularly then, it's a lot of fun. You get to like travel all over the place, strange places in the United States, a lot of places around the world, a lot in Europe, Asia, South America, uh, and as a single guy in his you know early 30s, had a lot of adventures,
Yeah,
um, and I it was about, I had started in the business, and you know I was still trying to figure out my role and how things
hmm
felt, and I was seeing an analyst at the time, and I was telling him, all right, a little tangent. So I was making a documentary at the same time.
hmm
I've been doing like side projects while working, for Graff Pinkard in today's machining world, like constantly. I have to have something hanging over my head. Um, and I was making a documentary about Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Um, you're familiar with the movie?
No, I'm not. No.
Okay. Yeah, it's a generational thing, I guess. But it's this wonderful movie. It's one of my favorite movies. It takes place in Chicago. It's like about the perfect day. You know who Matthew Broderick is?
Not
Um,
really. No.
all right. Well, starring Matthew Broderick, you'll have to go and see this movie afterward. Probably some people listening to this podcast know what it is. But, anyways, I basically recreated what was going on in the film. And this guy has like the perfect day where he goes to like 10 different places in Chicago. So I like retraced all the locations of the film,
That's
Um,
really
like there's a part where he gets this Ferrari. So I like got a Ferrari replica and was like going in exactly the path that he goes. I was, there's these parts where he's going through backyards and like I track down these places, right? So I'm telling
wow.
my shrink this and telling him about the business, and he's like, you're a treasure hunter. He's like, you had to like scout all these locations and
That's a lot of effort. Yeah.
figure out. Yeah, it was fun though. It was really fun. I mean, imagine like one of your favorite movies and just figuring out the origin of it and where
Yeah.
things were. And so he's like, just like you're doing that, like you're going scouring the earth looking for interesting equipment that people don't know what it's worth. Um, versus, you know, historically, a lot of the machines we've sold, they've been multi-spindle screw machines that they're old, and you buy them dirty and oily, and you go into these warehouses, and the idea is to buy stuff that people don't know what it's worth, don't want
Yeah.
anymore. Like,
Yeah. Maybe they upgraded it and just
yeah, they
called
upgraded
it.
it. Maybe it's a big company, they want to get it
Yeah.
out. And the thing is, you know, my coworker Rex, who kind of took me under his wing, he told me when I was starting, he's like, the machines that you make money on are the dirty ones and the weird ones. And it's, because they're the ones that people don't know what they're worth,
Yeah.
right? And so rather than think, I sell gross machines that we clean off and then we sell them for more money than we bought them for.
Hmm.
Um, it's a lot more romantic and interesting to consider yourself that.
Right.
So kept doing the blog and the machining business and or the machinery deal business, and then 5 years ago, again, it's my dad, it goes back to him. He, like 7 years ago, he's like, why don't you start a podcast? And I was like, all I listened to at the time was like, NPR podcasts that were all like really well produced. I'm like, I can't do that, I don't have time for that. And then I started hearing just interview podcasts, and I said, oh, I can do that, that's not too hard. So it's 2018. I felt like I was late to the game now or back then. And it
Oh yeah. People
uh
just not getting started. Haven't even started yet.
yeah, and I think, man, like I think about all the mistakes I made back then. I In the last year and a half, 2 years, I've gotten a podcast coach, which has really helped me. And one of the things they say is get on other people's podcasts, and that'll help promote your podcast. But it's so much more than just some kind of transactional thing.
Yeah.
It's
Building the relationship and the network
Oh
and
man, like it's the best thing. Like, because and what I'm going to talk about with next is, as far as my work, the networking um is so cool. Like the people now, we know each other, and it's a lot more than just, we hooked up on LinkedIn, and maybe you'll need something or I'll need have some
yeah.
question about robotics, but this is like, now we have a relationship, right?
Yeah, it opens the door for the relationship to happen. It like gives like an excuse for the relationship to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I was interviewed by a business broker who has a podcast 2 weeks ago on LinkedIn, and this is something our company has gotten into too, buying and selling machining companies. And he was
Mm.
like, his name is Damon Pistolka, and afterward he's like, let's just have a call. Let's talk for an hour, and you can pick my brains about what I do. And we did. It was amazing. Like it's just really cool how everybody's so giving, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, So that's a little bit of my journey in a nutshell. Um, and I can I'll tell you a little bit more unless you have some
Yeah,
questions.
yeah. I mean, what were some things that you feel like created some of the shift for you? Like, for example, at one point in time, you were doing, primarily the writing for the blog and whatnot, and then you kind of transitioned a little bit to being more of a hunter of these machines.
Yeah, and more
Where
business,
sure.
buying and selling, and
Yeah,
and people probably talk about this all the time on your podcast. This is what you talk about, the journey. You need movement in your life to feel uh, to get energy.
yeah,
Like you and
change
some
and something always going
change,
on.
yeah, and you sometimes you just have to. You're not even sure where it's going. You just have to kind of like move. My
Right.
I have a life coach now, and one of the things we talk about is following your nudges. So you you feel like trying something, and you can't hold back. If you just hold back and stay in one place, you're not going to move forward. You'll probably move backward, and you'll just feel like crap. So that's pretty much what got me to uh, to try the machinery business. I felt
Like,
stale.
yeah, ready to do something
I
new.
liked the creative aspects of it, but I wanted to do something else. That
How many years did you do of the writing before you moved over to the other part of the business?
mm, maybe like 5 years or something.
5 years.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's gone by. It's a blur. Um,
Right.
yeah, I mean, some of it was good. Some of it was just like I definitely need something different. I needed.
Right.
Um, I
When you
yeah. Go on.
yeah when you did transition, did you like get an immediate spark from that and feel kind of more intrigued to do it or
Absolutely, absolutely. You just all of a sudden it's just let's try this new thing. Like you get to um, it's new. It's an
yeah
adventure, and I love the business aspect of all the people you get to meet. You can meet a new person every day. I about 2018, I I I did this project. I always have to have some project hanging over my head. Uh, I met a new person every single day for a year, and I documented it.
wow
Um, at first, I did it because I felt like, again, I was feeling a little stale. I was feeling like, what I want my days to mean something. I
yeah
I I I, I want to make my mark, or I want it. I want there to be some significance, and I um, so all of a sudden it hit me like I remember I got in the car. I was eating at this like diner, and I had met this guy who ordered from the bar, and he was a really interesting guy, and I was like, okay, I got to my car, and I was all stoked, and I was like, I'm gonna write down one thing I created today, one thing I learned today, one thing I tried today, and one person I met that day. Um, and of course, obviously, you're not going to be able to keep like four of those things going on every single day. So the other ones fell by the wayside, but I kept the one that was like the hardest one of like meet somebody new every day, and it could be like 10 people in one day, or just one person in a day. Um, and then like write the story of it. And then I came up with this idea that I was going to turn it into like a book or a podcast, or um, it hasn't. It didn't happen yet, but I kind of burned out on it, and but I'm thinking that there's a germ of something maybe that's going to happen, because a lot of the people I met were for work, so I got people's stories,
Yeah.
and so as you can see, I'm all about stories and meeting people, and there's something just it's just like when you meet somebody that day, it's like that day meant something. It's like it. I mean, and when I ended the year, which was really weird after that, because it had become like one of the most it had become part of every single day, this quest. So it was strange to not do it anymore. One thing I noticed, like sometimes I just go back, uh, and I would look, who did I meet November 16th? Um, and so I'd go back to the date, and then I'd see like what I was doing that day, and I'd see like, um, all right, this day, like, it meant something. I met somebody. It was some magical thing that happened, and it. So I think it's kind of become sort of an obsession of mine, like knowing that every day means something. So then, after I ended that, I just started writing a diary every single day, like just to either just talk about what moments happened, or like I, I don't know. It's a pretty important discipline of mine
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely am always intrigued by those type of disciplines because it's like it's something that I personally don't have a very good skill at being able to do. Like,
I
there's a
doubt
lot.
it. I mean, you look at yourself. You're like the CEO of a company. Like,
Yeah.
don't tell me you're not disciplined.
No, yeah. The thing is I'm definitely disciplined in certain things, right? Like we do the manufacturing come up, I'm at it every week. Like we don't miss episodes. But there's like something about like I've tried so many times to either like do a diary. I've tried to do um, like one right now that I put in that category is I have my task list, right? And it's going into my task list at the beginning of every day and looking at that and just trying to lay out like, okay, here's the things that I have to do today. What are some of the priority things? What are some of the time sensitive
I've been
things?
trying to do that lately too. That's a whole new thing for me too.
But so it's like those type of things. Like, and there's been multiple times in life where I've done that. And I've had that in my routine, but it somehow it always seems to fall off. Right? I do a really good job with the note taking, checking them every day, and it lasts for some time. And then next thing you know, I'm not checking my notes anymore. I'm not checking my daily tasks.
Yeah,
And
I mean, yeah, it's really hard. I think um, part of it's grit, but part of it is if you really feel like you're getting something out of it, uh, then like that helps to do it. I do a gratitude list,
it's really good.
just about every workday in the morning.
Wow.
Um, yeah, but I mean, I did it because I wasn't feeling good, and
Yeah,
that, like, scientifically, it proves that
it
you
works.
can
Yeah,
really, so
yeah.
now,
I have
like, if I don't do it, I'll feel like, but
I
and like as you said with the schedule, like now I've kind of doing it, and if I don't do it, I'll feel like, and even though I'm not even doing a great job of it, I know, but like if I feel like disorganized, then the day will just feel like, like I didn't,
yeah.
even if I don't accomplish what was on there, like at least starting it off.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Going back to the gratitude thing, this is definitely more on the religious topic, but
Hmm.
I have one of my philosophies that one of the primary things that is wanted from you by God is to wake up and just be grateful every day,
Yeah.
and that's like one of like the minimal requirements. I feel like if that is the start of every day, then every day is a good day. If you can look at you know Gary Vaynerchuk has one that's like completely opposite, but he's
What
like, how
is
am I?
it? Wait, he's such a character. What's his thing?
He says the way I remain grateful or whatever. He's like, I imagine my whole family, like somebody coming in and like killing my whole family, and he's like, that's the way I stay grateful for it. I'm like, okay, but
It's
it's
a way
like
of
the law
it's a
of,
framing
yeah, it's a
mechanism.
framing thing. Yeah, he's just like, but I get it to some degree, right? Because like, and a lot of people can be like pessimistic to like what they have in their life, right? And so like by him like having that thought in his head that they could be gone tomorrow, and constantly having that thought, that keeps you like humble
Yeah.
and realizing like the worth of them being there and the value of them being there, and how much you would truly miss them if they weren't there. And so then that puts you in a great position to then be grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the framing is it's a very interesting thing. There's a new book. I heard an interview with the guy who wrote Dilbert. I don't know if I can't remember what his name was, but it's a book all about framing.
Mm,
And his thing was like, if you have a problem, um, think about, if you're on your deathbed, would you really care about this thing that had happened? Just stuff like that.
yeah.
It can be very
Yeah,
useful.
this one actually came up in the last podcast about like, just being a business owner, and like how more things will come to you, like more problems will come to you. The more things you try to do, the more problems there'll be, right? And so, one of the skill sets you have to learn with that is to be able to endure the things that come through, right? And I was telling Jenna this, that like, you know, these are small problems. I said one day somebody's going to sue us for $1 million, right? That'll be our new problems, right? So these problems that we're having today,
It's
every day there'll
true.
be
It's good
problems, right?
perspective. I I heard an interview and where somebody was talking about Quincy Jones. On He had a saying that said, "I don't have problems. I only have puzzles." So when things get kind of, I try to think about that. Um, so one of the things, I guess, um, we had just touched on it at the very beginning. Uh, One of the things I talk about on, I mean, we can talk about any number of things on this because I know your people are in industrial sphere, but one of the things I can't shut up about, in addition to talking to the people in the machinery industry on my podcast, we talk a lot about serendipity, which is a big thing for a machinery dealer. For people that aren't familiar with serendipity, it's basically a synonym for luck. Uh, how some people are always seem to be in the right place at the right time, and other people aren't. Uh, Never seems like they have the movement that they're looking for. Um, I interviewed a guy on our podcast. His name is Christian Bush, and he wrote a book called The Serendipity Mindset, and it's all about how you can do things to find luck and success. Um, so he's got certain there's certain tactics you can use, that I try to incorporate every day, when I'm meeting people as a machinery dealer. Like, well, first there's something called serendipity bombs. So if you say you're looking for a new piece of equipment, um, for your shop or something, you come up with like 10 people who might have it, and then you contact all of them, as opposed to just contacting one person. Now, I mean, this seems like very obvious, but it's like, if you just do certain things like that, all of a sudden I got lucky. Oh, I found somebody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
um
That's I really want to keep discussing on this topic because it's like something that I truly believe in, and it's like that was like one of my thoughts for the manufacturing come up too. Was like, it's a serendipity play, right? As far as like if we're talking about an ROI, I went into this thing saying I don't want
Networking.
an ROI out of this, right? I don't anticipate an ROI. There's not going to be an ROI. We're not even really talking to our customers. We're talking to, individuals trying to navigate a career, right? So like if however, on the flip side of that is, one of my philosophies is like doing the right thing is always the right thing. And serendipity is like one of the factors that could potentially and probably will play a role in this podcast here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's uh, you know, just it's all about one thing leading to another, which is, one of my favorite parts of the serendipity mindset tactics is it's called serendipity hooks, and this is where there's certain things in a conversation you can say that bring out the luck. So, like, for instance, um, if you meet somebody at a conference, or say you meet somebody at a bar or something, right? And they ask, Noah, what do you do for a living? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I could say, like, I'm a machinery dealer, in which case they'll go, huh? You know, but I could say, I'm a used machinery dealer. Um, and I also have a podcast about the subject.
Mm,
And I make movies, and I'm also like love salsa dancing, but I don't have a chance to do salsa dancing now because I have a 1.5-year-old kid. And all of a sudden you have like 5 things to talk about,
wow.
and then like magic happens, right? Because something strikes a chord with one person. So, like, for instance, say I'm trying to sell a machine. Somebody contacts me about a machine they see on our website. Say
Yeah.
they or say, for instance, I'm trying to sell let's put it into robots. So somebody calls, they see some on our website there's a Fanic robot, and before I call back that person, I look on their website, and I see what else they have, and I see, oh, they have a KUKA robot, they have an ABB robot, and I go, well, I have those too. And
Mm,
so now I'm ready. When I call them, first thing I'm going to do is, yeah, we'll talk about the thing they asked about. And then I'll be like, by the way, we just bought this ABB robot. Um, I noticed you have some on your website. Uh, do you have any interest in that? And all of a sudden, like, you just strike a chord, something that they may not have even realized you
yeah.
had. Maybe they really prefer an ABB robot to a Fanic robot, and they only thought you had that. But
Yeah.
by preparing that, all of a sudden, I mean, like, all kinds of magic can happen. Uh,
Yeah.
and and
Yep.
I mean, you've sold things before, right? So you know
Yeah.
that if you call up somebody and you say, "Are you looking to buy anything? Are you looking to sell anything? Can you know?"
Right.
Generally they say, "No, we're cool."
Yeah. No, we don't
But
really need it.
but if you
Yeah.
know that, they I happen to know that they use these robots in this cell they have.
Hmm.
I've researched them. And then you bring this up. Oh, I have this, like, practically brand new Fanic robot.
Yeah.
And they'll go, send me a quote on it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that 100%. Like I'm gonna start using that one whenever I'm meeting people. I did, after you brought that up, I kind of reflected back that that's one thing in my like sales skills that have increased. I'm listening to a ton of content around sales and industrial manufacturing sales and stuff like that, and just trying to get better at that skill because it's not the background that I came from. I came from engineering and have primarily self taught myself all the sales skills that I have learned
Yeah.
uh, over the past 4 years. Definitely some feedbacks of some of our employees that we've hired who've had some sales backgrounds and stuff like that has definitely helped a lot too. Um, but then just overall, just trying to get better at it, right? And so like one of the things that I noticed that has been uh, I'll say a game changer has definitely at least been a shift in the dynamic of some of the like sales meetings and them becoming better is just like the extra mention of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, and we also do this, right? Or
Absolutely.
and then they're like, oh, you do, and then
Right, because I mean, you guys do so many different services, so, and they don't know, right?
right, Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
the
yeah,
whole serendipity idea is that often things are better turn out better than what you originally thought they would be.
yeah,
If everything went according to the plan, then they wouldn't even be as good as they are.
right. And going back into that same thing, uh, questioning. I've always been really good at asking the questions, right? But like, because I feel like I'm also a pretty good listener, but the asking the right question, right? You start to get some inclination of like, oh, I kind of have a feeling they have like some assembly thing going on there. Let's say I'm talking to a primarily a welding customer, right? They primarily have like robotic welding needs, but I'll kind of pick up on like some hint that like maybe they have some like assembly operation going on in the same facility, right? And maybe it's just like a small inclination that is a thing. And so from there, maybe bringing up something like some material handling applications, or actually this one very specifically came up was AMRs. I said, yeah, we have AMRs for on our material handling side. I kind of just like throw in our if I'm talking to a weld customer, I kind of just throw in our material handling. I
Yeah,
don't really push it too hard. You know what I mean? Because they probably don't care because they're doing welding. But I kind of throw it in there, and so in this instance, I kind of just threw in the AMR thing, and they're like, oh, we were actually just looking at
absolutely.
different AMR stuff, and then we got into the discussion of mirror. Oh yeah, that was the exact same one we were looking into, like, and then, so there was a connection there with like now there's
Absolutely.
a request there.
Absolutely. Uh, so yeah, you totally get it, and I'm sure. And the first thing you started out with was what led to this, what led to that, what led to that. I mean, and I know one of your things too. You talked about networking. Another one of the main things of serendipity is it's connecting the dots, and that could be connecting people, or it could be just connecting different deals.
Yeah,
Um, you the more people the more magic that can happen,
yeah,
and then like one of the things that Christian Bush says to do is when you meet somebody new, the first thing you should do is think about all the other people and think, oh, who should I introduce this person to that that could like create some magic
yeah,
between the two of them. Because I don't know, it's sort of a universe thing. Like it kind of all comes back to you.
yeah.
um but it's yeah, it's an incredible thing. I know there's a good chance that uh I'll have somebody call about a robot cell, and then I'll now know you.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, this is probably one of the my biggest focuses right now. Actually, is like just building more of a network in the sense of like deeper relationships. Right, like I know a ton of people. Right, a lot of the influencer people that you see on LinkedIn and have their own podcasts. Like I'd consider myself friends with them,
Mhm.
but the depth is not really there, right? And so like
Mm,
that's one of my core focuses is like at this very moment, and like this one of my I don't know, life goals you could say is like just focus more on pouring into those relationships and doing anything I can to help facilitate the relationship itself, help facilitate the people, however I can connect them, and just build other relationships as well, not even just my relationship with them, but relationships amongst other people.
absolutely. I wrote a blog and did a podcast about this, where if you help someone um, in a non-transactional way, particularly, there's a
Mm,
certain bond that
yeah,
forms, like a special bond,
yeah.
where you need each other, or they need you, and it's stronger than just like we met and we had a great conversation.
Yeah. There's one of the guys that I listen to. He brings up there's this law
Who do
called
you listen to? I listen to lots of jokers too.
this one's Alex Hermosi.
Oh, of
So
course. Yeah.
he brings up the law of reciprocity. I think it's
Reciprocity.
reciprocity, yeah. And
Yes.
so it's kind of like that
Big.
same thing.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely the same thing. This is something that I talk a lot about is the reciprocity. And it's, I mean, a lot of it is just um, transactional, and some of it is just kind of karma too. But
Yeah,
they do studies that show like when you have a candy store and uh, if they give free candy when people walk in, they buy like 20% more than if they didn't.
yeah,
Um, but yeah,
yeah,
no,
yeah. And I've seen
it's
that.
all about that.
I've heard the same thing for like servers. Like if you're a server and like you put a mint on the table or something like that,
Yes.
or you put two mints, like it increases like so I really love like digging into that type of psychology. I think what takes me some time definitely is the connecting those dots into like real world life, right? It's like I've known this thing for like 5 years, and then all of a sudden, like I'll have like a conversation with you, and then it's like, oh wow, like that now all that made sense. Or like whenever you made the comment about
It's true. Isn't it weird how like you have to hear something like a bunch of different ways before all of a sudden it clicks and you
yeah,
go, okay, now I'll remember that and now I'll do that.
yeah, like I mean, you brought up the one with the where you kind of give an introduction, but you give like a longer introduction, and I'm like, wow, like because like that's one of the parts that I'm like just
What do you
I'll say
talk?
introverted.
What do you talk? For instance,
Uh,
when you're introducing yourself, yeah,
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 introducing myself, or I just don't even like the walking up to somebody and initiating the introduction process, right? Like that's like the hardest part for me. Even after we even get started talking, like I can kind of get past that, but like this creates like that doorway to almost make it easier to say, "Hey, how's it going?" Da 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 da, and like give them that long spiel, and then not have as awkward of a next transition into the next part of the conversation because you've laid out
absolutely.
like 5 points that we can discuss on.
I mean, and you talk about people in our industry. Like, look, it's it's a great manufacturing industry. It's very interesting. There's lots of great people in it, but there's a lot of people not in our world and they just don't get it, or they hear it and they jump to certain conclusions. So maybe if there's other ways you can kind of level with them, you know, they can meet you as a person, and then maybe you can sort of break through that barrier. um, I mean, I'm not saying you should avoid talking about, you know, what you do, which is important to you, but I'm just saying, like, come up with different ways to connect. It's
Yeah, absolutely. So, going back to the topic of serendipity,
Remember,
what are
Malachi, also, I'm not trying to mess with your interview, but 10 minutes I'm going to interview you. So, I'm not telling you to wrap it up, but I'm just saying, just get ready.
I'm ready.
Get ready to be on the other side in a few minutes.
I'm ready. So, for the what are some other things that you feel like fall into this serendipity category, or
Yeah,
maybe either some examples of it or some other
sure.
strategies that you have with it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, so for instance, um, there's other ways I've put it. Like the other day, I wrote this blog and had a podcast. Like usually, so I'll interview people and then I'll do like intersperse that with like a solo podcast / blog. And I wrote one. It's called Pin Action. And do you bowl, Malachi?
I used to bowl a lot. I was actually
Okay.
really good at one point in time.
Okay. So do you know what pin action is then?
I don't know what pin action is though.
So pin action is, as a bowler, if you hit that perfect pocket, um, it's going to cause the most pins to fall. The most
Mhm.
pins are going to hit each other,
Okay,
and
gotcha,
and then you're going to have like the best results, right?
gotcha.
So, and this happens all over the place. It happens like look in the stock market, right? Like Microsoft goes up and then Amazon goes up because people get confident in one thing or another, right?
Yeah.
I find like you get inner pin action. Like, for instance, maybe you're doing really well in business and you're selling things to people, and all of a sudden your confidence is really high,
Yeah.
and then you call some other people, and then they sense that pin action inside you, like all of a sudden you have all that swagger, and
Yeah.
and then you get good vibes from them, and it just becomes infectious. Or like the other day I was at this conference, and one of the things we do, we've been really getting into buying and selling machining companies too, Graff Pinkert, and so I had we had this really we had a very significant dot at this conference, and this guy we told this guy about this company we had for sale in Canada, and the guy wasn't interested, but he's like, but hey, that guy over there. This was at breakfast. And he's like, that guy over there, he might be interested. I know him. Introduces me. That guy wasn't that interested, but then he introduced me to another guy who's like, yeah, I might be interested. And then next thing I know, that one middle guy, uh, he calls about a machine a couple weeks later. Um, and and but the pin action can go negative too. Like you can just have like
Right.
you can you as a bowler, I'm sure you're familiar with the Brooklyn side, right?
Not heard of the term either, but I get where you're going.
So there's the pocket, right? The regular
Yeah.
pocket on the, like, say you're a right hander and it's like the 10 pin and then the pin next to that. But the Brooklyn side is on the other side of the 10
Mm.
pin, right? So
Yeah.
maybe things aren't going right, and you're like, all right, I'm just going to aim like slightly the other way. I'm going to just like do something else and maybe do something total opposite, like go George Costanza on it. And then you can just create some new pin action. So that's like another
Yeah.
serendipity thing, and
Mm.
I don't know. It's
That one's one that's going to take a year to sink in. But I get what you're getting at with it. I just got to let
oh,
it. I just got to let it get
it's
the time to
just think
sink in.
it's dominoes, man. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I mean, it's literally just like
One victory leads to another.
yeah. Yeah, and then taking other actions of just other actions that are outside what you're currently doing to try to create more of that pin action. A
Yeah,
perfect example, like that's one thing that that makes me, I'd say, a good business person is that I'm always thinking about, okay, we're doing this now. What else can we do? Right? Like
yeah. I can
literally,
tell. I mean, I go to your website and it's like there's a whole bunch of different things you do, and I can see how they all like converge.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so for like that side of things, like we build capital equipment, so it takes like a lot of engineering, facets, mechanical, electrical, simulation, like all these different types of engineers to make a system come to life. And so then it gives us the ability to create each one of those things as a service, right? Or at least all the things that we want to do as a service. So yeah, definitely create some avenues for us. But even like in business, like maybe it's coming up with micro content, or maybe it's texting. Texting is one of the new things that we literally just started, or I wouldn't even say just started today. We like just initiated this week and are
Texting.
getting all our ducks in a row. Yeah, like text initiatives. Like we call somebody, they didn't answer, and then we shoot them a text,
Oh, okay. Like
right? So
doctor's
it's like
offices. Yeah.
yeah, just another angle. You know what I mean? Like think about like, and part of this, it just comes from like intuition and just looking at like, okay, I get 200 people call me in a day. Out of those 200, 180 of them I don't want to talk to,
Yeah.
right? out of those 180 that called me that I didn't want to talk to, only two of them text me. So if that's going on like industry wide, worldwide, whatever, right? Like there's a gap there, which means if there's a gap, there's an opportunity, you know. And with today's age, like a lot of people screen their calls, so they're like, I'm not going to answer that. But you shoot them a text message, but oh, that's Billy Joe with this. maybe I do need that, or maybe I am interested in looking in that, or
Yeah,
maybe
maybe.
serendipity,
I
right?
hate spam texts though too. I really do.
We won't send you any spam text. Don't worry. But
Right.
I think it goes back into serendipity too, right? Because like, let's say you send a text message, and then 4 weeks from now, Billy Joe decides he needs something. He's like, somebody got a hold of me like 4 weeks ago. I remember seeing like a call or a message. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. They texted me, right? And they scroll through. Most people don't text a lot of people. They have like 5, 6 people they text anyway, and they go, oh, okay, there it is, right there, my eighth person down or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or they just change jobs. So it's, in my opinion, it allows for an opportunity for one to get past screening, if and maybe create the opportunity for them to answer the phone next time or respond to the text. And then secondly is the serendipity part of that, of like, somebody might respond in 5 weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, one thing leads to another.
All right. No, we got to go. We have another podcast to get to.
Yes.
Where
We
can
have
people find you?
the Swarfcast to get to right after this. So Malachi, this is awesome. Thank you for having me on. And if anybody wants to check out my podcast, check out Swarfcast, SWARFCAST. And if you're looking for a used machine tool, call Graff Pinkert.
Awesome. All right. Sounds good. See you, Noah.